I reckon we should do a blind test. And what I want to do is use all of these shafts that are all the same model, but in different weights. So I've randomly arranged these shafts. They are the KBS TGI graphite shafts for irons, and I don't know which one is which. All I know is A, B, C, D, E. We've got the same grips, we're going to use the same head, and we're going to see if I can feel what the difference is between them, and we're going to see what the data says between them as well when I don't know which one is which, in the aim to reduce the placebo effect. I'm going to be using them on the Avoda Origin 60-degree head and see what we get. So A is this one, and all I can see shining through the tape is the TGI. I can't see the weight on it at all. So let's grab a Shrixon Z-Star golf ball and give him a whack. So I'm not going to start guessing yet, but the TGI KBS shafts are the firmer profile within the graphite iron shaft family that they offer. The TGI is the stiffest, hardest version. Then you go into the PGI that's got a little bit more play, and then the Max that's got a lot of play. Ooh, a little bit heavy in terms of strike, not in terms of feel or weight. So I'm going to try and feel on the next one whether it's heavier or lighter than this one. Not bad in terms of direction, not too bad in terms of dispersion. 3 shots on the green, lovely jubbly. Let's leave it there, shall we? And go for B, whatever that be. So, does it feel more or less stout than the previous one? Feels a little bit easier, but still pretty nice. So, sometimes the weight of a shaft can have a bit more bearing on how easy or hard it is to use, more than the flex. And the flex in itself varies massively from shaft to shaft, brand to brand, model to model. You can have a load of stiff flex shafts that behave in a certain way, and then you can have a load of other stiff flex shafts that behave completely differently, even though they've got the same flex written on them. Which is why when some people say, oh, I swing it this fast, what flex should I use? Well, there's a whole world of variance within that question and that answer. Yeah, it definitely feels easier to get through the ball, so I'm predicting it's a lighter one. And it's gone near the pin. Well, I quite like that. So similar sort of dispersion, just easier to do it. B against A. Now let's see what this one does. Ooh, I reckon that's in between the two. And it felt pretty good through the ball. So at the end of this, I'm kind of looking to see whether there's sort of like a stepping stone of different spin rates, whether there's a stepping stone of different heights, different peak heights that get created, or whether it kind of crosses over itself a little bit. Because sometimes if we've got 5 weights and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't necessarily work like that. It might sort of go 1, it might cross over and sort of like, yeah, it might not be as definitive because there is variance in the human aspects of getting through the ball, but we might get a trend in certain data. And maybe draw spin, and maybe backspin. Nice, feels a bit higher. Cool. 3, 3, and 3. A, B, C, D. I haven't really got any puns for D, so let's just hit D. Oh, that feels heavier. I reckon, oh, let's see what the last one is first. Up, down, mid. Okay. And if we get to a stage where we go, well, there's actually not a massive difference between these weights, maybe the 70 gram against the 110 gram definitely has a difference. Do we need that many options in the middle? could you kind of like go 70, 90, 110 quite happily and still have enough variation between them? Do we need 10 gram increments in there, or is that too much? I wouldn't feel it's overly necessary. What I'd probably normally do is go wedges, irons, and the longest iron maybe, because you're changing the task of the club. With a wedge, maybe the heavier one will just keep it a bit more together because the loft will give you the forgiveness in the club. And then same in the rest of the irons, but the longest iron just 10 grams lighter just to make sure it's easier to go, but the same profile of shaft all the way through. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Or would you just go the same way all the way through? I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, but there's room for trial and error to investigate maybe. What does E feel like? I reckon, hang on, oh, I need to change the thing. Oh, that's lighter. That's definitely easier to get through the ball, swing a bit faster. So as you swing a shaft, the shaft bends on the way back and then it releases into the ball. If I've got more weight, I've got more mass to get back into the ball. So sometimes people use that mass to get back into the ball. Sometimes people can't quite get that mass to fire in. So when a shaft has more flex or it's lighter, we tend to see something higher and lefter, generally speaking. But I reckon the 110 is the D. I reckon this could be the 70. Yeah, that's just so much easier to swing because I've got less mass, less weight to accelerate with. So being lighter, I can fling it faster, throw it faster. Now, if a shaft is too movable, too whippy for someone, you might get that shaft bending and releasing into the ball at different rates. So you get different lofts and different face angles more because the pressure that you put on the shaft getting back into the ball just reacts differently per swing. So then that's where we're looking at dispersion. We're looking at how big the ring of scope is for that shaft, and does another shaft give you a smaller spread of shots? Because then that shaft suits you better. So that is 3 with every shaft. Wonderful. I'm just going to hit one more with A because I am just slightly more warmed up than I was when I first picked this up. No, okay, not as good through the ball. I reckon I've got a bit more spread with that one. Yeah, my strike's not as consistent. I'm not delivering that shaft into the ball as easily. And in terms of the avoda fitting process, we're trying to discover what parts are easier for you to use. So part of the process is you have different lie angles and you go, yep, no, that one's better. But you get it in your hands, you hit balls and you find out, which is the best way to test if a component works. So I absolutely recommend going through an avoda fitting process at least. You get a chance to see what these delightful heads look like and feel like, and you go, I like these components. So then you know what sort of categories you will tend to prefer, what you will tend to perform best with. I did exactly that with a chap earlier. We had no intention of buying, we just went through the process to learn what he needs, and we found out that the shaft and the lie angle of the heads were completely different to what he's used to. And then his problems in his golf swing were reducing because he was using components that met his delivery rather than trying to fight it and go against it. So let's have a look at the numbers first. Numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to compare these raw, A, B, C, D, E. And we've got one grouping down here which is not as good. So my ball speed significantly dropped with A because I couldn't find the middle of the face with that shaft. So I don't like A. We'll find out what that is in a second. I am faster at E, so that obviously just suits me better. Launch angles are all fairly close. Lower launching, lower spinning than these two. But we've got one outlier there, so I definitely don't like A. We can delete that from my pool of shots. And again, we're looking at how these things suit me. So if I remove A, we can determine that A is the 100. But TGI 100, not for me. No, thank you. And then we've got some carries here, 182, 185, 189, 189. So I'm pretty close in D and E, whatever they are. Not bad in C. B is the next one I can eliminate because the carry's gone down to 182. Yes, okay, I've got a 2-yard spread. I had a 4-yard spread here with the 100. So let's take B out of the equation. And B is 80. Okay, 80 grams and 100 grams eliminated. So I would guess that 90 grams shouldn't in theory work because either side weren't quite there. But if we have a look at the peak height, so the peak height with A and B, 106 feet, 109 feet, B and C. A was 92 feet, and I think I put a lot of that down to some scrappy strikes, so I can get the 182 out of it, but it's still just not there for me. And then B, 106 feet, C, D, and E are all dancing around the same space. I've got 109, 109, and 111. The dispersion E is looking pretty good so far. I've got 2 feet of variance in that 111. I've got 3 variants at 109, 3 variants at 109. And again, this 189, 189 combination against the 185 just means that I know I'm sitting in a pretty place up here. So if we now take C out, because it just wasn't quite, that's the 90. Okay, 80, 90, and 100, I don't like in the TGI. Well, I don't mind them, I could play with them, but they're just not as good as the other ones. And really oddly, this is going to turn out that the 2 best shafts here are the 70 and the 110. How does that work? So the shafts that I have left here to open the doors on is D and E. Now, I had 700 draw spin on E, and I had 560 draw spin on D. So is there anything less than 560 in the others? I've got less in B and 700 there. A, the first one, 297, okay. But the last 2 shafts are 140 revs different in average draw spin. This D is looking like it's a tighter consistency of the draw spin. So the 560 varied 193. This 700 varied 400. So it goes down to 170 up to 1000. This kind of sits a bit tighter to the mark across the 3 shots. And then angle of descents are close enough to each other. They're within 0.5 degrees of each other. 45, that A came in just a little bit flatter. But they were just poor strikes because I didn't like it. And if we compare the dispersion on D and E, so we've got white against pink. White is a better dispersion, so D is a better dispersion. And D is a better consistency of draw spin. So then, moment of truth, do I prefer the 110 or the 70? Which is very odd, but the process is the process. 110 in the D. D. D110. Okay, maybe I could feel that it had a bit more and I reacted, I don't know. And in a previous video, I did actually hit the TGI 110 pretty well, and I didn't hit many overdraws or any overdraws. It kind of like stayed on the straight and narrow pretty well. So 110 held its own on the D. So 5,700 spin, slightly slower, so slightly higher launch, slightly higher spin. But 189 with 2 variants against 189 with 1 variant. So I'm going for that white ring, slightly tighter dispersion, choice between the 2. So this one is the loser between them. And it is indeed the 70. But it went pretty well. All the bits in the middle didn't quite do that great. or as good as these two. So again, do we need 5 different weight categories? What do you think? Or is it best to just stick to one, because we might just poison the well a little bit by trying too hard to blend? I think from what I've seen there, I just got through the ball better with this, and even the, sorry, on the 110, but even the 100 and the 90 just weren't quite there for me. So yeah, I'm waffling a bit now anyway. Hope you enjoyed that. Either end of the spectrum worked, but the 110 was the winner for me. What do you reckon you would win with if you were to do this test? Or would you be better with the PGI or the Max shafts instead? Or indeed something else? Let me know what you like, what you've used and what you want to try. And I'll see you on the next video.